I want to start by just saying, wow, what a thrilling 3 days this has been. When we began thinking about hosting an in-person Congress several months ago now, I must say I still had some skepticism. I wasn't sure we were actually going to do it because at that time, especially where I'm from in South Africa, the pandemic was still raging strong. And any prospect I thought of traveling anywhere seemed impossible. And I thought, well, yeah, let's do this, but I don't think we're actually going to host an in-person event. And even several weeks after that, I remember John Yearwood, I'm not sure where he is, one of our colleagues on the board, promised me a coffee that he hasn't delivered on in Vienna, and it still seemed impossible. I told him that I would take him up on that, but I didn't really believe that even I would make it to Vienna. So the fact that this Congress has happened, first of all, congratulations to Barbara and the team here in Vienna for making it happen. And I think we want to say also a very special word of thanks to the team here in Vienna, Milica, and really the rest of the office who've worked really, really hard to make this event such a success. A little while ago, there was a short line of us going for our COVID tests, and the fact that you had thought that far as well of arranging all of that, it's been a seamless experience for us. Thank you, Milica. Thank you to the entire office, and please join me in applauding them as well again. So, yeah, I mean, I'm almost not sure what to say. When I was 12 years old, I remember telling an English teacher of mine that I wanted to be a journalist, and she was horrified. She paused, she took a swig of the can of Coke that she had on her desk, paused again, and then she asked me, "Do you think that's an appropriate job for a woman?" And she continued, "A Muslim woman." And I was taken aback, because up until that moment, I had never conceived that there may be any opposition to me being a journalist or even wanting to be a journalist. Somehow I ended up a journalist anyway. It says something about either my spirit of rebellion or really the unmistakable lure of journalism. It is, for me, the best job in the world. When the various parts of a story come together, when the various parts of a publication come together as an editor, watching it all come together, being part of that feels a lot like magic. It is, for me, the best job in the world. Sure, the pay is bad, the hours are long, and many people hate you most of the time. But you know what? I still wouldn't do anything else. And for me, despite the many, many challenges that being a journalist presents even today, and the new challenges, it's the potential and the opportunity to touch the world, as I call it, that makes me want to ensure that we persevere, that journalism endures. Because above all, for me, when journalism is done well, it helps us understand the complexity of the human condition. When it's done well, I believe that journalism has many, many functions. Yes, indeed, it has the potential to change societies, to influence political decisions, to hold the powerful to account, to expose, indeed, the worst parts of who we are. But even, I believe, in its most crude form, journalism also allows us to just delight in each other, to bring joy to each other. And I think that it's this particular potential for journalism that we often overlook. And certainly when we consider the stark realities of our colleagues in places like Belarus and India, as we heard them unpacked last night, the potential for journalism to simply spark joy seems trivial. But I've come to understand as well that it is indeed for our need, our fundamental need as human beings to feel joy, that the stories about repression, the stories about the abuse of power, the stories about corruption need also to exist. Because we're complex beings. We are not just one thing, and our experience also is not just one thing. There is no singular Hungarian experience or singular South African experience. And what journalism does, the great wonder, I believe, of what journalism does, is that it simultaneously helps us to understand each other better while doing all these other things as well. And when we lose the ability to do journalism, I believe we lose the ability to understand each other. Journalism for me is a bridge to informed societies, a bridge to accountable governments, a bridge to an equitable future for all. But it's also, at its most basic level, a bridge to each other. In a time when human differences are being weaponized, when hatred is an electoral strategy, we must cling to the ways in which we can build tolerance, in which we can build hope. For me, journalism is fundamental to that. In the last 3 days, we've heard many, many stories. We've been inspired, we've been shocked, we've been surprised. And we understand better, I think, the challenges journalists face around the world. And I think it would be easy to leave Vienna feeling a little overwhelmed by the sheer number of challenges we face. But I think that would be failing the purpose of this gathering. When a colleague of mine back in South Africa got the news that I'd been elected to this position, he sent me a message cheekily saying, "Congrats, but tell me again, what is it the IPI actually does?" And I had to take a moment. He's being cheeky, I know. But I think that it was a moment for me also to understand the potential and the purpose of IPI. And the IPI, for me, brings people together. It brings people in our industry together in one singular purpose: to ensure that press freedom endures. And we do that in many, many ways. You know, the strategies are different, the modes of delivering that are different, and certainly I think in the coming years they may be even more different. But that is the singular purpose of our being. And so, coming together here in Vienna, I would hope that we actually leave hopeful. Every now and again, I need to return to a particular quote from Noam Chomsky. He says, if you assume that there's no hope, you guarantee that there will be no hope. If you assume instead that there's an instinct for freedom, that there are opportunities to change things, then there's a possibility that you can contribute to making a better world. And that's how I want us all to leave Vienna tonight and to leave this beautiful, beautiful venue. Fortified with the idea that we can indeed contribute to making a better world. Journalism must endure because human beings must endure. I want other 12-year-old girls to be able to say they want to be journalists, and I want them not to be scoffed. I want them not to be discouraged. Instead, I want to ensure that the path for them to be journalists, to be the best journalists, and to stand here before you like I am, is clear. For journalism, IPI must endure. Thank you all so much for joining us here in Vienna, and we look forward to welcoming you in New York. Thank you.